What are the hardest jobs that surprisingly pay very poorly? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started. Group home disability care workers. Many clients are aggressive and even throw their poop. It's physically exhausting and emotionally traumatizing to restrain a grown adult in their physical prime. It's hard to keep your composure in those crisis situations, all for $18 an hour. We would hire people off the street to fill our positions because no one wants to get beat up all day for $18 an hour. Answer: I worked as a site manager for a group home for like $15 an hour. And by manage, I mean still perform hands-on caretaking duties, hygiene assistance, cooking, passing medication, etc. With the addition of administrative ones like ordering supplies and medicine, organizing outings, handling finances, being on call regularly, and trying to mitigate staff conflicts and failings, i.e., sleeping on the job, being verbally harmful behavior to clients, etc., without actually bodily having the power to give consequences, all for more than a regular DSP, direct support professional, which is hard enough. I miss my clients dearly and learned a lot, but leaving that job to go to grad school has been one of the best decisions I ever made. Next story. In most U.S. cities, EMTs are paid little more than minimum wage. They literally save lives and deal with all sorts of shoots you can't imagine, all for $10 an hour. Answer: okay, here is why. People who get into emergency medicine do it because they want to help people, and the people that run the medical industry in the U.S. are business people who love to make money. Those owners take advantage of pure motives of those in their industry to pay them as little as possible. It's made even more apparent because when nurses and EMTs actually do strike, it's usually for things like patients' rights. They would rather fight for the people in their care than for a decent living for themselves. Source: former medic, now working to get first responders the benefits they deserve. Next story. Wildland firefighting. Unknown federal, not the firefighters in red fire engines with all the bunker gear. Federal forestry technicians who battle wildfires. GS3 entry-level grunt gets $11.83 an hour. Only gets 6 months of work. Hikes, digs, breathes smoke, always dirty, always gone. Only gets 6 months health insurance. Also, emergency medical technicians, social workers. Answer: 20 years ago, working fire could be a cool job. It had its downsides. Cutting line has always been hard work, and living in camp can be a tough lifestyle. But if you liked your crew and had a halfway competent boss, there was a lot of hanging out with the bros. All that hiking and PT was all right. Get in shape, get a good tan. You didn't have to deal with much human misery. Not in the way an EMT or social worker does anyway. And you never had to pretend to be nice to the customers. These days, IDK. It would be so hard to work a WI fire where you had to see homes burning, evacuate people and pets. That sort of thing used to be rare. Now I guess it's part of the job. Next story. Most things requiring a professional degree and involving children or animals. Pediatricians, child specialists, and veterinarians are woefully underpaid when you look at education requirements and student loan burdens. Answer: honestly, trying to work with wildlife animals can feel intimidating sometimes. Positions don't typically offer the best pay, especially starting entry. These jobs are appealing to a lot of people usually because animals at work. And to stick out, especially in better paid positions, experience as well as education are pretty commonly expected. It's a field that can definitely feel sometimes like you need to be very immersed to have a chance in. I've met some cool people through my studying and experience so far, but you definitely can run into those kind of animal crazy gatekeepy type of people. Next story. Any job involving childcare. Teacher, aide, daycare, nanny, none of them are paid enough to deal with everything they do, maybe nannies depending on the family. Answer: my mom ran an in-house daycare for 16 years, 89 to 5. For the time she made really good money, her and my grandma were responsible for 12 kids between 3 to 5 p.m. and during summer. But it ruined her mentally from the stress. Once my sister graduated high school, she gave everyone 90 days notice. Her and dad sold our childhood home, and she's been retired ever since, besides an odd job here and there at a gas station or grocery store. Everything now and then I'll run into a kid we used to sit and they'll still glow about my family daycare. It's cool, but my mom hasn't been the same. Next story. EMT, hands down, no question. Why are they paid less than McDonald's workers? They should be paid like a nurse or doctor, especially when the ambulance ride costs $100 or more. Next story. Veterinary technician, schooling required, have to pass national boards, pay to register, and do continuing education every 2 years to keep being able to pay for it. Have to be the anesthetist, phlebotomist, hygienist, pharmacist, place catheters, handling controlled medication. All for slightly more than min wage. Registering to be an RN is $190 for 2 years. Registering to be an RVT for 2 years is $350. Answer, definitely state dependent. My California RN license was $350 for 1 year, and it took 4 months to get, even though I have a license in another state, which also needed to be renewed for an additional $190. Then fingerprints, transcripts, and temporary license costs, which was another $170. So all in, I spent $520 for a single state license, and the temporary license never even went through. My state doesn't share licenses, isn't a compact state, and neither is California. That said, vet techs need to be paid more too. Their pay is total BS. You guys do a lot. Next story. Animal shelter rescue work. I worked as an adoptions associate and an animal care tech in a shelter, and it was the best and worst job ever. I loved the work I did, and it was some of the most important work I've done in my life, but I disliked that my job existed. It's hard work and takes a big emotional toll on you, and it also, unfortunately, paid pretty poorly. Next story. Zookeeper. A very dirty, often physically demanding, and sometimes very dangerous job done in all kinds of weather. Not to mention that you generally need a 4-year degree and a couple of unpaid internships to even be considered, at least in the U.S. Zookeepers often do not get any benefits either. Many that I have known needed a second job on the side to make ends meet. Answer, this, early hours, long shifts, late nights, poop everywhere, and a large amount of continuous heavy manual labor. I'm not afraid of hard work and am physically fit, but the toil was immense, especially in the summer months. I was only a volunteer and was flattered they offered me a job, but taking it would have been a 60 pay cut from my cushy office day job. No thank you. Next story. Honestly, any kitchen job in a restaurant context, the only saving grace is the people you work with who are stuck in the same chute you are. Next story. EMT and investigator for CPS. I've done both. Now I do neither and finally make a pretty good living in digital marketing. Next story. Human services, mostly working with people with all kinds of disabilities, and it usually pays close to minimum wage. Next story. Picking fruits, vegetables, or anything else that's manually picked rather than machine picked. Orchard work. Answer. I started following United Farm Works updates on Twitter a few years back, and I am always learning something new from it. They post a lot about the conditions people have to work in and the stuff they'll wear to protect their skin from different plants in the sun. Highly recommend the follow. It's made me so much more appreciative of what we can easily pick up at the grocery store and the insanely grueling, demanding, and sometimes dangerous work farm workers do to feed us. It genuinely leaves me in awe. Next story. Flight attendants. They will tell you that they paid $25 per hour. What they don't tell you is that you are only paid for flight hours, not boarding, deplaning, delays, ground stops, cleaning the plane between flights, pre-flight crew briefing, pre-flighting emergency equipment, checking catering supplies. ICT. You get paid for about 20 hours per week, but are away from home 4 to 5 days per week if you live in your base city. If you have to commute, add half a day on each end. I loved it and would do it for that little amount, but it can be hard to keep your head above water financially, especially if you commute. Commuters pay for either a crash pad or hotel room in their base city before and after trips. Answer. I see this a lot on Reddit, and I fly a lot, so I have to wonder how this makes a lick of sense for short flights. For example, Alaska has a ton of flights between Portland, OR, and Seattle all day long. The actual flight time is like 28 mins tops, but between boarding times and everything, it's obviously much more of a time investment. How does this make sense as a flight attendant? This is a frequent flight for me just because Seattle has more direct flights, and I see a ton of the same FAs, which makes me think they are just going back and forth all day. What happens for FA that do these short routes? Are they just fudge and can only clock a few hours per day, even though they dedicate their entire day to it? Next story. Document review attorney, go to law school, get debt, pass a difficult bar exam, get 22 HR, and people think you have money because you're an attorney. Next story. Architect. Edit OP said jobs that are hard and pay surprisingly low wages. Who's surprised cooks are poor? Everyone knows janitors don't make shoot, and it's an unpleasant job, often. Seems like pop culture has used architects as a catch-all job for someone with money and a lot of free time. Truth is, you get paid shoot and you work a lot, unless you're Frank Gehry or Zaha Hadid. Answer. The career is so promising, throughout schooling experience. Once you are involved in the career, you realize how little the clients want to pay for such services. Pay how much to draw 4 rooms and a roof? I can do that, and I don't have a degree. Why should I pay you so much? They never realize the amount of time needed to research the site, coordinate the disciplines, permit handling, code research for the area's building and fire code laws, materials research for local and/or affordable building supply, bidding cost estimates, contractor negotiations, continued site visits during construction, updated addendums, punch lists, closeout procedures, all for 4 rooms and a roof. Next story. Resident physician, 25-hour shifts 2 to 4 times per week for months on end wears on you. Pay is somewhere between 10 HR and 15 HR. Next story. NASA astronauts, undertaking one of the world's most challenging roles requiring unique skills, intense physical demands, and extensive education, all to earn $100,000, which seems modest in comparison to the job's demands. Next story. I work in a crisis center. I get paid like fast food wages and have a BA, almost a master's, and 7 years experience in direct support. Behavioral health doesn't pay male body part unless you are lucky enough to get an admin position, and sadly, those are only given to ass kissers. I wish I would have known wanting to help people would only put me in debt. I have $163K in loans I cannot afford to pay on. I'm having to work OT just to make ends meet. I'm so busy helping everyone else and running on empty. Next story. Anybody that was called hero and essential during stay-at-home orders. We were too important to stop what we were doing since the thin veneer of civilization would disappear, but not important enough to be paid well, apparently. Next story. Translator. It's an incredibly intense job requiring years of academic study, a master's degree in most countries, on top of the lifetime spent learning a foreign language inside out. When you finally get a job, it's full concentration and focus for the entire workday and probably a lot of overtime to meet deadlines. Currently, the pay is ridiculously low, a few cents per translated word, and more smart-ass clients also just pay for reviewing machine-translated text for even less. Next story. Critical care flight paramedic here, forced to have 3 to 5 years experience in a busy 911 system before being able to fly. Of course, have to be an EMT basic before becoming a paramedic. I have all of my advanced certifications and perform many advanced procedures that some doctors don't perform some places. 22-hour. Next story. Journalism. Literally risk your life in a war zone and don't even dream of ever making enough to buy a house. Next story. Funeral directors. Only the owners make money. I was making 10 an hour before a generous wage increase to 15. Next story. Any job involving customer service. We take a lot of jerks shoot and couldn't possibly be paid enough for it. Next story. A librarian. Librarians have the task of finding even the most obsolete of media with next to nothing to go off of and get paid jack shoot. Next story. Junior enlisted in the military, you don't get overtime, and depending on your job and unit, you could easily be pulling 60 hours a week and be getting the equivalent of $10 an hour to fix billion-dollar pieces of equipment. I know because I had to put up with that shoot. Next story. Physically speaking, fruit picker. Also worked as a mover for a few weeks. Moving extremely heavy objects that are awkwardly shaped down narrow stairs is a recipe for back injury. Next story. UK professional horticulturalist demanding physical fitness, the ability to work outside in all weathers, the ability to remember hundreds if not thousands of botanical plant names and growing habits, and lastly, good communication skills and the ability to lead or work as part of a team. Next story. EMTs are one of those gigs that pay poorly, but the folks doing it are mostly going to leapfrog at some point to a fireman gig or a government gig that pays better. But yeah, 15 an hour for serious medical personnel is crazy low. Next story. Postal delivery. I walk 25 kilometers a day, do 170 stories of stairs a day. With my seniority level, I make 52K Canadian a year. Top seniority would be 64K a year. Answer. Canada Post? Either way, 52K is way above the average for almost any job in Canada that requires literally no specialized skills. 25 kilometers a day is also exceptionally rare for a route and the literal top end of what is allowed. If you are Canada Post, you are also downplaying how much you are able to make as multiple members of my family work for them in different roles. You have amazing benefits too. Reading your comment was so ironic because it's such a trend for the carriers to be super entitled about their role and have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. Spot on. Next story. Supreme Court Justice. Clarence Thomas only gets $250K per year, which is why he needs to ask millionaires for luxury RVs and billionaires for yearly vacations. Next story. Anyone touching or preparing food. Not only do you have to make it, but keep it within date, correctly stored, in clean containers, and clean all equipment plus the room it's prepared in. While the place is open, especially for a 247 place, which means fast food workers are tripping over each other to make food and clean the room. Next story. Zookeepers are quite an unsung low-paid job. You need to have a degree to start with, and then it's such a competitive market that you need to volunteer to build experience. If you get a job, you'll be paid $21K in the UK, max out under $30K. The job can involve unsociable hours, being on call, dangerous work environments, and working in all Westers. Problem is, keepers don't make the business money directly. They're seen as an expense like health and safety officers. Plus, people will literally pay money to be a keeper for the day. TLDR, zookeepers. A lot of work to get there, hard graft in the job, low pay even at the top. Next story. Sanitation workers. My husband was one for 20 years. He worked every holiday. He worked crazy hours, dealt with all the city politics of raises and help, had horrible equipment. I finally helped him get a better job 2 years ago. He has never been happier. Next story. I feel like the lowest paid jobs are often hard in that they are the worst jobs, dealing with awful customers, terrible work conditions, or long periods of monotonous tasks that make you feel like a brain-dead robot. Next story. Certified nursing assistant. Clean shoot, blood, piss, and vomit all day, don't see the light of day, and make as much as a McDonald's employee. No wonder we have a shortage of nursing assistants. Next story. As an EMT, I made $1 over minimum wage. Great stepping stone job, paid poorly, lots of mental trauma too. Next story. Customer service jobs at a call center. Have you ever wondered why, when you call customer service, the person on the other end is surly and doesn't seem to actually want to help you? It's because they're paid shoot wages for an utterly shoot job. They're stuck in a queue, the calls come in relentlessly without a break, and almost everyone they're talking to is pissed off about something. Now, if they had the resources, training, and pay to actually fudge help people, the job wouldn't be all that bad. Mrs. Johnson, I'm sorry that your cable bill has gone up by 20%. Let's see what we can do to fix that. And then they spend while trying to fix the problem. That's not what the call center employee gets to do. Instead of providing customer service, they're supposed to handle the call in a set number of minutes, follow the script, wrap up the case in an even shorter time, and go back into the queue to get yelled at again. If they don't hit their metrics, they get yelled at by their boss. When they get their paycheck, it's only slightly more than what they'd get working a drive-through. Next story. Most forms of hard manual labor, landscaping, drainage installation, farming, pool installation, concrete, demo, blacktop, roofing. So I'm not going to lie, this is actually really upsetting that none of you guys have listed any of this shoot. Do you really think roads and roofs just appear out of nowhere? Next story. In comparison to how much education you have to have, read, loans you have to take out to do the job, public defenders get the shaft in the world of law. As far as lawyers go, they bear witness to all the injustices of the criminal justice system, experience intense secondary trauma and burnout, all while handling caseloads that no one can reasonably handle because states value their work so little that they don't hire enough people. And let's be honest, the fact that states don't want to pay the attorneys in public defenders' offices much means that the admin staff gets even less. That's awful. People often think lawyers get paid well, and let me tell you, public defenders have to be in their jobs 20 years to ever come close to the salaries that many of their classmates started making after graduating law school. Starting public defenders in my state make around 40 to 50K a year, compared to law firm salaries that started 150, 200K a year. Even small local firms pay closer to the 80, 100K range. Do public defenders have it as hard as EMTs or some of the other jobs listed here? Obviously not. All I wanted to point out was a job that is absolutely necessary in our legal system, required by the Constitution, takes a horrible toll on people's mental and physical health, requires specialized skills and years of education, and doesn't get paid nearly what it deserves, even though people still assume it does. Next story. American teachers, they deal with stupid and lazy parents. Lazy students who don't want to be there or have mental health issues, home life issues, a poor curriculum which is influenced by religious idiots or narcissistic rich politicians who serve only corporate interests. Teachers deserve at least 100 thrown annually. Next story. Water well drillers. They risk life and limb every day to provide essential services to the community, all for maybe 20, 30 a year. It's not enough. I've met some with crushed skulls, missing metatarsals, and very few have all their digits remaining. While the drillers and helpers work year-round throughout every extreme, the company owners that oversee a 3-5 person crew are making multi-millions each year, and that's after overhead. I'm not a driller, but I oversee well construction. Next story. EMS or other 911 dispatchers. Imagine dealing with all the worst traumas over the phone, having to get help started and document everything. Take control of the scene so everyone who needs help gets it. Also doing this while often speaking to hysterical people who just want help there immediately and don't realize the questions determine what type of help, what first aid instructions they get, how many resources are needed, etc. Then after shift, you still hear the screams, or worse, the complete silence of someone who passed while on the phone with you. Next story. EMTs are the obvious ones. Teachers is a big one for me. Like, everyone knows they're underpaid now, but honestly, it's so insane to me that teachers don't make more money. It's a job most people can't help but get deeply, personally invested in, and dealing with children every day in that capacity is so viscerally exhausting. Next story. Working in a special educational needs school, getting hit, kicked, bitten, spat at all whilst trying to educate and support, all for $8 an hour. Next story. Anything with animals, vet tech or animal manager husbandry, usually 10-hour days for shoot pay, sun, rain, or hurricane, it doesn't matter. Holidays are never expected to be off. I used to watch and give meds to up to 25 dogs and around 15 cats by myself for 14-ish an hour. I worked in WA state though, so that was the minimum wage at the time, and taxes are steep. It's my passion, but it's not easy work, and I'm a little nervous for post-grad careers, TBH. Next story. Archaeological technicians. Requires a bachelor's degree or higher in a field school. Spend weeks at a time away from home staying in rundown hotels in the middle of nowhere while digging holes all day in all types of weather. Blisters, snakes, sunburns, you name it. Only the tough survive, and they only get paid around 16, 18 HR. There's talk about unionizing every once in a while, but nothing has come of it. Next story. Omaha, Nebraska here. EMT, AB 16-18 paramedic, 2023 McDonald's worker. 16 EMS is disgustingly underpaid. Next story. Anything with teaching children. I used to be a paraprofessional and worked in a residential facility for higher needs kids. At least pay a living wage, Fs. I've almost been stabbed, bit, hit with flying objects, and concussed. I'd go back to education in a second if it paid better. Next story. Housekeeping is what I do, and in Texas, it's very low wages, 10, 12 G an hour, and it's hard work. Cleaning rooms after people trash them is no picnic. Next story. Long-haul semi-truck drivers literally keep us all alive, and most make it home 3-4 days a month. They make average money, but for the actual hours invested and time away from home, the pay is half of what it deserves. Next story. Veterinary medicine. Vets and vet techs go through the same amount of schooling that doctors and nurses go through similar steps to be certified in their state country, condense many forms of treatment, specialization, and duties in one singular hospital, yet get paid half as much as their human med counterparts. Next story. The food industry. On top of rush hour and having to deal with entitled customers, you pretty much rely on tips to make ends meet. Next story. Have you ever dug a ditch? It's hard if and pays shoot. In fact, basically every job that pays poorly is hard as hell. Next story. Fast food. There aren't many jobs I've had that have kicked my jerk as much as that. Difficulty to pay ratio, that one was the hardest with the shittiest pay. Next story. Care work. There's nothing like changing adult diapers for 18 an hour and constantly dealing with crisis situations. Next story. A shelf stocker of huge stores, imagine Walmart in US, is very poorly paid, and I only received less than 8 per ye. But what's hard about this job is you are quite frequently asked, where can I find that? And you have to answer it quickly, or otherwise the customer will get upset. Seriously, I have to know the locations of every product in such a large store. Years have passed, and now I get paid $50 hourly with far less effort. Next story. CNAs, especially the ones in nursing homes, one of the hardest jobs I've ever had, and not many people realize just how difficult it really can be. Next story. Teachers. If you include the unpaid overtime, lesson planning the night before, grading at home, 247 parent-teacher issues, it's well into the single digits. Next story. Arborist ground crew. Tree branches or entire trees falling around you, plus running chainsaws, and the potential to get caught up in a wood chipper and Fargo yourself. I did not make good money unless it was a prevailing wages gig. Even when I climbed, the money wasn't worth the risk. A few years after I left the industry, my best friend ended up falling $35 from a tree with the top, forcing him to the ground. When he hit, the treetop landed on top of his hips, and they both bounced and then hit again. He spent months in the hospital and multiple surgeries to be able to walk again. He ended up not going bankrupt because it was a prevailing wages job. So when LI got involved, he was getting paid the entire time of his recovery. They paid for worker retraining for a new line of work. Next story. Utilities wastewater. We work so everyone can flush rags down their toilet, and we're around minimum wage. Next story. Flight instructor. I spent a ton of time and money becoming a pilot, and the entry-level flight instructor jobs paid about $10 an hour in 2005. You are only paid while the engine is running and not the time you have to spend at the school preparing for the lessons. They know you need to build your flight time to move on to bigger and better jobs so they can pay less. Next story. A lot of jobs requiring manual labor. I worked at a UPS warehouse for a while after college. My shift started at 3 a.m. because all of the packages had to be sorted and loaded on trucks for a 9 a.m. departure. Most of us loaded 3 trucks solo, which required constant physical exertion for 5 hours. A bathroom break meant you missed packages coming down the belt. So if you couldn't convince the guy next to you to cover for 2 minutes, you just didn't go. Also, you know those boxes that say they're heavy and not to lift them alone? Yeah. Same deal. Getting help meant convincing the guy next to you to drop what he was doing, and the odds were pretty darn good that he was so overloaded that he couldn't step away, so we just grabbed those solo. All this was for minimum wage. The only upside was that I was able to cancel my gym membership because after a few months I was absolutely yacked. Next story. In my experience, the worst paid jobs are usually also the hardest. I've never worked harder than I did for minimum wage. Next story. IDK. But any mechanic working on anything that drives where there is salt in the winter should be paid at least $100K a year. Next story. EMS helicopter pilot. I teach software engineering, and one of my students was changing careers because the pay was shite. Next story. Anything in the customer service industry, we put up with some of the most aggravating, impatient, and entitled people and receive little or no recognition and certainly not enough monetary compensation for continuing wanting to do your job to the best of your capabilities, regardless of their demeanor. Agnostic at it. I often wonder how many of my clients who fit the above description label themselves as Christians. Being a recovering Catholic, I'm more than familiar with the advice in the New Testament, love thy neighbor. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but even as a disbeliever, I still hold true to those words in almost every aspect of my life. Next story. A bit niche, but the hardest job I've ever had was dog group play handler. Dealing with 20-something over-aroused dogs is physically and mentally exhausting. The noise and barking, getting jumped on, dealing with pounds of dog poo of every color, smell, and consistency. It's boring for long periods of time because you have to be alert and pay attention to prevent dangerous situations, but you're most often not doing much. Many places don't allow toys, so playing with dogs is out, but if you've ever spent roughly 8 hours with a group of bums, you know that fetch gets old quick anyway. Many don't allow phones, so no podcasts or scrolling Reddit once the dogs are napping. Dogs can get so crazy when you put them in a group. I've had my nose bloodied because a 90-pound dog headbutted me in the face. It's also not the safest job. Handlers are responsible for managing dog fights when they come up. You won't get eliminated, but I've known of people needing the hospital for stitches of sprains, and one got permanent nerve damage. Afeik, he was not compensated in any way for this. I've been bitten a bunch of times, once in the face, minor damage luckily. When I started my first dog job, I was given next to zero training on handling, and I tried to lift an older medium-sized dog into a kennel. If I had been trained, I would have understood how dangerous this is. Places pay minimum wage, and I'm sure they would pay less if they could. The first place I worked at churned through employees at an astonishing clip of weekly turnover. We were constantly understaffed, and safety, supporting new employees were not priorities. Vet any pet boarding place you leave your pet at very carefully. Mom and pops are generally better than large chains with massive capacities. In my opinion, there is no ethical way to keep upwards of 200 dogs in the same building. Fudge you, WAG hotels. I'm glad that your horrible practices are finally being made public. Next story. Working with developmentally disabled individuals in any capacity. Many of us give our hearts, souls, and bodies for our work, and we get very little or pay or respect acknowledgement in return. Next story. Research scientists. My sister was working for the Johns Hopkins and then the Cancer Institute under the NIH conducting research as a human geneticist with a PhD in genetics from the best university in the world for genetics and was making like $40K while living in a major city and having to work weekends and nights in addition to work weekday hours. She eventually ended up leaving and changing careers. And she always said, I must be the idiot for working so hard for so little because the only other people who were in her field were all foreigners who would get the education and a few years postdoc experience and then return to their home country. Next story. Teachers. They're not paid nearly enough to deal with kids, their parents, and gun violence, U.S. specific. Next story. Anybody who teaches or cares for people with disabilities of some kind. It's almost like society says, we don't really have time for these folks. But if you want to help them, here's some pocket change so we don't feel so bad for ignoring them the way we do. Next story. CNAs, CRMAs, medtechs, and anyone else considered lower-tier healthcare workers. We actually deserve way more money than we get. It's laughable. Next story. Firefighting. My dad was a firefighter his whole life and didn't make much. Around $35K most of his life, maybe a little more at the end. Breaks my heart. He dedicated his whole life to it. Next story. Mechanic. The cars have gotten infinitely more complicated, difficult to diagnose, and in some cases dangerous to work on. Dealer groups work hard to suppress wages across the board. Next story. Cops in my city make barely above minimum wage, and they literally encounter life-threatening situations daily. Next story. Teaching. Teachers are so important. My mom was a Head Start teacher. She had to evaluate each kid, and if there were any kids with learning behavioral issues, she would have to create a separate lesson plan for said kid, which meant meeting with the parents, kid, and a psychologist multiple times to ensure the kid got a proper education for his needs. She would also have to do home visits in unfavorable, dangerous areas. Also watch every kid to make sure their home life was good, their needs were met, they weren't coming to school in dirty clothes, unhygienic, etc., on top of lesson plans for all the other kids. She would have to decorate, supply her classroom on her dime. She was working all day and come home to do paperwork, lesson plan all night. This was in Puerto Rico, but she also did it for a few years in Florida. She taught me to appreciate teachers. They truly have an impact on our children's future generations, yet we pay them close to nothing. Next story. I would say hospital staff that don't have a degree, such as CNA. I am a nurse and make 3x what a CNA does, and usually don't have to do as much dirty work. They deserve more pay, for sure. Next story. Honestly, any job in the USA that makes you roll out of bed to deal with people pays very poorly, or at least a lot less than it should pay. Next story. Social work. I worked the front desk at a social service center transitional shelter combo. I was held at gunpoint with nothing more than a pencil and a whistle and my wits to protect myself with. I had someone try stabbing me with a dirty needle after I revived them with Narcan. I didn't know it was a tragic end attempt, but they ended up getting clean after that. Had someone try stabbing with a knife because I didn't have a hygiene bag made yet as it was a busy morning. Had multiple people try coming over the desk, throwing haymakers, etc. I literally kept things from my wife so she wouldn't worry for my safety every day. I went to work, all for making 5C over minimum wage. At the time, outside of Portland, Oregon's minimum wage was like 11 or 12 for a year. Next story. I work in veterinary medicine. The tragic end rate is high. Burnout is insane. Staffing sucks. Management doesn't pay enough for high caseload hospitals. And student debt from vet school is absolutely wild. Next story. Retail isn't so much physically exhausting all the time, but dealing with people, both smart and the dumb ones ever, helping them is mentally exhausting all day and at times hours after your shift ended. The pay isn't typically great for the wear and tear on your mental health. Next story. Meat packaging plant worker. Very fast-paced, repetitive motion jobs performed in cold and or hot extreme temperatures. Many times very heavy lifting and stinky conditions involved too. Some pay better than others, but for the amount of work involved, it's not enough emo. Next story. Certified nurse assistant. Have to have an education and certification and still get paid minimum wage to work in very serious health and sanitary conditions with no appreciation from the public or your employer. It takes a heart of gold to be a CNA, and most of them quit when their souls are drained from the job. Next story. CNAs. Certified nursing assistant barely get anything, and they have to deal with some nasty, crazy shoot. Next story. EMT has to take the cake. More underpaid but difficult jobs would be loggers and arborists. Two of the most dangerous jobs in the U.S., and some people are doing it for like 16 AR. Some do get paid all right, contract climbers, utility arborists, but in general, the industry does not pay enough for the risk and physical demand. Next story. Social workers. We see and deal with some really difficult things and are seriously underpaid. The job can be very rewarding at times, but burnout is very real. Next story. Organic vegetable farming. Absolutely backbreaking and no money in it whatsoever. The owner of the farm I worked on hadn't paid his mortgage for 3 months when I started. Next story. Working in deli for major grocery stores. You work your butt off, take harmful behavior from customers and other store associates higher on the ladder, and the pay and benefits are not worth the aggravation. Some people are fine with it because of certain perks, which is true to a point, but when it becomes harmful behavior, no, this I found especially true of Florida-based Publix. Summer of 21, husband and I vacationed up the East Coast, and I purposely, as deli employees at Publix we visited, how did they like working there? Most said it sucked, but they needed a job. There is favoritism. All were told at hire that Publix culture was tops, etc. Some workers were okay with Job, but overwhelmingly most disliked the deli. And if you were able to find a job with customer service, it would be less stressful. Went to other grocery store deli and got very similar responses. Deli workers are very much underappreciated and underpaid. Next story. Wilderness therapy professionals. While the industry has rightfully gotten a bad reputation due to mismanagement and negligence at the top level, the folks who work directly with troubled teens are often very highly qualified, very caring, capable people. People who are empathetic, selfless, trained in conflict resolution mitigation, happily responsible for tragic end and homicide prevention, happily responsible for the health and well-being of a group of 10-15 kids that the rest of society, including their own parents, have given up on, trained in dispensing medication and maintaining medical records, doing daily health checks, preventing medical issues, performing emergency life-saving techniques, responsible for often low-tech land navigation, weather mitigation, the ability to make life-saving fire in the driving snow with nothing but an edge and a piece of paracord, cooking, hiking up to 11 miles per day with a 95-pack, providing legally binding status reports at the end of each day via satellite phone or radio, cleaning up human filth, being responsible and legally liable to dispense methodologies of care as outlined by psychologists and therapists, enduring physical violence from the client's students, absolutely ready to be fired for any mistake at any time, willing to receive critical feedback from any and all involved professionals, losing sleep in order to keep tragic end, self-harm watch for at-risk individuals, cooking for large groups over a fire, shelter building, trench digging, mitigating bear mountain lion and other predatory animal hazards, legally mandatory reporting of peer misconduct. And we got paid $11 an hour for only 12 hours of a 24-hour, 15-day nonstop shift. Next story. The people who care for your loved ones, CNAs, PSS, etc., the ones who bathe, feed, clean, wipe, move, motivate your loved ones. Their wages are ridiculously low, and nursing homes and hospitals are staffing less and less, legitimately dangerous staff-to-patient ratios to keep the CEO's yacht payments going. It's gross. Next story. Can't speak for other positions, but in IT, it's service desk, get treated, Luke shoot by customers, get treated like shoot by the sysadmins. In some cases, they have bachelor's degrees, and without them, the company wouldn't function. They get paid like 12 to 18 an hour. It's great to have on your resume, but I do not recommend staying in the field longer than needed. Most IT jobs, you get treated like shoot, but the service desk also get paid shoot. Next story. In England, at least, early childhood staff. It's hard physical work looking after small children, and it's a huge amount of responsibility. They have to be qualified and pass background checks. The average salary is $19,000. Next story. Public service, like social work, is a bear. You get overworked, underpaid, and harmful behavior. You might get okay benefits if you're lucky enough to get a state government job, but there's usually a bunch of BS that goes with that too, like department politics, and you still tend to be underpaid. My last job working in a vocational rehab office, the state workers, I was part of the third-party company, but they mixed us in the office, got paid less money, had a longer intro period before they got benefits, 6 months for SAR 3, and only received their paychecks once per month. Awful. The job requires a bachelor's degree and at least a year's worth of experience and still paid less than $45K. State workers made even less. Cheapest health insurance for one person was $200 a month, which isn't bad for a single person, I guess, but heaven help you if your spouse or kids needed to be covered. Next story. Resident physicians, at least 8 years of post-secondary education, often more, working 80 hours per week managing life or passing situations, making close to or less than minimum wage when accounting for the hours and unable to change jobs without losing the potential to work in medicine in the future while also having hundreds of thousands in debt. Next story. Tons of healthcare jobs, namely lab assistants and lab technicians. We really don't make as much as you'd think given the amount of time, effort, and education that goes into lab work. Next story. Chefs make a salary mostly just so they can legally work below minimum wage due to the massive amount of hours they are required to work, 60 to 100 a week, depending on how much you dislike yourself. Next story. Rescue service drivers for Tikopopoe. They jump your car battery, charge a flat tire, bring gas, pays minimum wage, and drivers are paid minimum wage. Shift is 12 hours, 5 days a week to deal with pissed off people who are late to work or something and yell at the driver for taking too long to get to them. People seem to think the rescue service runs like a pizza delivery service with guaranteed 15 delivery. Next story. School teachers. The amount of education and training that goes into it, plus the level of responsibility they have, makes teachers one of the world's great underpaid jobs. Next story. Pretty much all frontline workers. The system is backwards. We have a whole office full of people that hang out at their desks all day and make more than the installers. Yet nobody would have a job if we didn't install. Next story. I knew a surgical technician once, had no idea it was even a thing, but she worked in the OR directly with the surgeon, sometimes holding stuff precisely in place continuously for several hours, or doing whatever else he needed immediately. She was completely stressed out and exhausted every day and battled depression because of it. She made like 30 kilos. Next story. Resident physicians, doctors who have finished medical school, but 8 now in the required residency training, make minimum wage working 100 hair weeks as doctors. Next story. I was going to say teacher, but I don't think it's a surprise how little they are paid. I'm still baffled how little preschool teachers make, given how expensive it is to attend. Next story. Refuse haulers. The guys on the back of the truck that do most of the physical work are rarely paid much more than minimum wage. Next story. Asbestos removal. Highest paying job I could find in the summer between college and it was 13 per hour. Wearing Tyvek suits and heavy face masks and heavy labor in extremely gross conditions. Next story. My mother was bedridden for 8 years. The CNAs are angels. We started at 15 an hour, 5 of that to agency, private pay, so the net to actual angel was 10. We ditched the agency after 2 years and paid 15 an hour direct to CMA. At the end, it was 20 an hour. This took all of my mother's $100K in savings. But that is what my parents worked for. Next story. Nurses, nursing staff, the schooling is expensive. Licenses, exams, and renewals are not cheap. 40 HR work weeks, holidays. Administration always pushing for us to do more with less. Verbal and physical harmful behavior from patients, and many making $27, $40 per hour, while we see travelers come in making triple. Next story. Arborist, 10, 14-hour days, 5, 6 days a week, starting at 6:30 a.m. Expected to perform to the top of your mental and physical ability every single day, without exception. Climbing 100 feet trees with a chainsaw in the wind, rain, snow, hail, even all at the same time. Ask any climber. Climbing is very hard and uncomfortable on your body. The stress of being pushed beyond your limits by your bosses and coworkers, combined with driving large dump trucks, paperwork, and customer relations. Long days means no time for recovery. Wake up, do it all over again. Developing chronic long-term injuries. Get paid $22 an hour. Next story. Teachers and nurses both are paid very poorly for what they do on and off the job. Also, and more importantly, paid very poorly for what they contribute to our society and way of life. Next story. Teacher, EMT. Most engineers don't really make shoot. Edit. Bit of a surprise choice, but a lot of lawyers make way less than what you'd expect and are barely able to make ends meet, especially when you factor in the cost of school. The issue is some of them make way more than you can ever spend, and in general, people don't like lawyers, so this isn't something people are ever going to cry about. Next story. Nursing. Bedside nursing is grueling hard labor and pays absolute shoot and requires a college degree in a hard science. Bedside nurses, CCU, typically work 12-hour days keeping 3 or more patients alive, charting every 15 minutes or less, taking vitals, cleaning up liters of shoot, and all the while trying to treat the sick human like a human. They deal with incompetent management, doctors too busy to care, and a system that spits them out time and time again as if they are pawns. Next story. Working front desk at a car rental or truck rental place, usually understaffed and have more responsibilities than most jobs that pay 100K, but are only paid 40 to 50K for several years until you quit. Also salaried, so you don't get paid OT when you work 50 hours and have to work weekends. Next story. Not on the levels of EMT nurses or teachers, but ISS flight controllers, especially the contractors, are paid shockingly poorly for the work they do. Supporting a 247 job without a consistent sleep schedule is rough even without the added work of all they do as far as documentation, training, and reviews. I think fresh out of college, they are paid anywhere from 10K, 20K, less than their fellow graduates in other positions. Next story. Volunteer workers, they get paid nothing. I was an ER volunteer for a year. On your feet exhausting. No pay. Next story. Teaching. I live in an increasing COL state, and I now make less per hour than people working fast food. But because I'm newer to teaching, I make maybe 1,000 less than my friend who's been teaching for 13 years. Pay teachers more. We do so much. Deal with all the shoot parents don't want to at home. Invest time and energy into these kids. Treat the job with the respect it should deserve. Next story. The more useful and essential a job is to society, the worse the pay. But if you make PowerPoint slides to help sell plastic garbage made by slave labor in China, you'll make real money. Next story. I am a dialysis technician. I have people's lives in my hands for 13 to 15 hours a day, and I'm paid a couple bucks an hour more than a grocery store worker. Next story. In comparison to the rest of the dealership, service writers and service managers, they have to deal with all the upset customers and make around 12 of what a good salesperson can make. Next story. Adjunct professors, they teach us almost 70 classes, all university classes. They are literally paid minimum wage. Next story. EMTs, the stress and crazy schedules plus dealing with horrible situations. Most get paid near minimum wage. Next story. My dad's been a firefighter for over 20 years. I started making more money than him when I was 22 or 23 and without a college degree. Next story. Arboreal maintenance for a power line clearance. They get away with paying poorly with shoot for benefits because they harmful behavior the system by hiring those with felonies. With majority of the workers having records, they all refuse to go union. Next story. Not the hardest job ever, but being a cook in a busy kitchen can be extremely challenging and grueling, and most places pay them shoot. Next story. Cable technician in-house for any major ISP. They start you at like 15 an hour, and your job entails climbing 30, 50 feet up telephone poles every day, running wires from said pole to people's houses, running wires inside people's houses, getting bitten by dogs, go into people's houses who should probably be condemned, dealing with nasty, rude customers who will tell you you don't know how to do your job because they don't understand it, and doing it all in literally any type of weather. It's exhausting work that involves a lot of problem solving and thinking and a little bit of math. You'll never be appreciated by either your employer or the customer. Oh, and the ladder weighs like 90 pounds. Lugging that around can be a pain in the back. Next story. Doctors, they spend so much time and effort just to get their doctorate, and they are still one of the many to struggle with money, including lawyers. Next story. Entry-level healthcare related and definitely patient care. Jobs that require a certificate but still pay you like shoot. Next story. CNA. My mother works as one. It's a difficult and time-consuming job, yet they get paid terribly. I've never asked, but I work at Lowe's making $13.60, and I suspect she doesn't make that much more than me. Next story. CNAM, medical assistant, daycare workers, social workers, substances and adult beverage counselors. Next story. Social workers, impossible caseloads, and many have to have a master's degree at minimum. Grueling work and dispiriting to see how poorly kids are treated. 30K. Next story. Care. You work countless hours, low staff, zero thanks, low pay, and damaging to your own mental health. Next story. Teachers is always the answer. Kids are getting worse. Parents are not helpful. The education system works against them, and they get paid almost nothing. And it's probably one of the most important jobs for all of society. Next story. CNA ESPON, those who work in nursing homes. Back-breaking work, and they usually don't get paid half of what they are worth to take total care of the elderly. Next story. Also, customer service folks on the telephone. They are paid shoot and very often not even given the tools to help a customer by the company they serve. Customers scream and blame them, call after call, day after day. Next story. Pediatricians, they have to do the exact same schooling as a neurosurgeon, yet they get paid about a fifth of what neurosurgeons make. Next story. Being a fudge teacher, I can't believe how little they make for one of the top 5 most important jobs there can be. Breaks my heart, BC. Those people are mostly saints. Next story. Social work, some of the most dangerous and challenging work a person can do, and it's atrociously underpaid. Next story. Pharmacy technicians, they make less than $17 an hour for nonstop demand and verbal harmful behavior from patients. Next story. Any work in the not-for-profit sector, the likelihood of getting a raise is basically zero. The work could disappear in the next funding cycle, even if the government and the public know it's needed, and the burnout rates are insane. Next story. Teachers, they care dearly about their students. At least the family members I have who are teachers do. Yet the students dislike their guts, and at least some try to actively make their lives more difficult. Have to spend their nights grading papers, spend their own money decorating their classrooms. And in this day and age, if a student isn't succeeding in school, they get to hear from every parent, "Why are you failing, my little angel?" Who in reality is likely a slacker hellion, rather than the parents doing like my parents did back in my day and deservingly blaming me, despite the fact I'm learning disabled. They did defend vigorously me in that regard. Next story. All education, retail, service, and construction jobs. In terms of actual societal worth, these PPLs should be making investment banker salaries while we put all of the investment bankers in prison. Next story. Any job that pays hourly and was called essential during COVID lockdown. So those folks had to go into work while everyone else was hunkering down at home, especially if they didn't get any kind of hazard pay or just a pay increase. Next story. Licensed nursing assistant is the worst, lowest paying job in America, aware of that, and paramedics generally get paid very poorly. Both jobs have a pretty high exposure rate to very awful things. Next story. Being a resident physician, you get paid minimum wage, do 24-hour straight shifts, work 80 hours a week, get disrespected and treated like worthless by almost all staff and patients. If you complain, people will tell you that you signed up for this when no one really knows how bad it is until you're in it. And most people can't sympathize with doctors. However, you sacrifice significantly more in time, over 10 years of your youth, than any other profession. You watch people who didn't choose medicine start their lives, buy houses, have kids. You are in $200K student loan debt and have not had any chance to really live your life. You also can't quit and job hop, so you have to take being treated this way for a minimum of 3 to 5 more years to then pay off your debt when you're finally finished. Catch up on life experiences. Start rebuilding your mental health, all while people say doctors are paid too much or are here to support big pharma. Next story. Metal foundry workers in the bowels of hell for an average of $35K always makes me pause and wonder, fudge, really? Next story. Not as low paying as jobs in care, etc., but I was genuinely surprised at how little architects are paid in the UK, considering how long they have to study for. Next story. This won't get much sympathy, but adjunct college professors. Over half of all college courses are taught by adjuncts who are part-timers with either an MA or PhD who get paid on average $3K per class, but they don't typically get benefits and often work at 2-4 colleges to cobble together a living. These folks are full-time teaching college between 2 to 4 campuses with PhDs and earning $30K with no benefits or job security. Next story. Honey bucket cleaner. My God, that's a job I could never do. And they don't get paid much, last I heard. Next story. School teachers, childcare providers, any labor-oriented job in the restaurant industry, server, bartender, dishwasher, etc., newspaper reporter. Next story. Emergency medicine, aka when you call 911, high stress for shoot pay and being unappreciated, shoot lame as fudged. Next story. Pharmacy technician, make 10 to 15 HR starting, communicate and process critical medical information all day, and have an insanely high learning curve needing to understand all of the inner workings of insurance claims and context of medicines. This on top of getting berated by customers in understaffed pharmacies and being treated like they don't know anything. There's no wonder technicians are walking out of pharmacies and choosing other careers. Next story. You know those people who swim in pools of shoot, septic systems and all that, to test it out and stuff? Yeah, it's shoot pay, not nearly enough for something 99 of people will not do. Next story. In the U.S., paramedic, EMT, firefighter, sometimes, pilot, caseworker, group home attendant, some teachers and daycare workers, especially private and religious schools, health aides, CNAs, many nonprofit and university staff that are not upper-level admins, librarians, church secretaries, lay staff, vet techs, I know I'm forgetting some. Next story. CNA. My mom was one for 27 years. They make like 12 HR. She has gotten punched and groped by elderly residents, has to clean up pisses, ushed, and vomit. Plus, she lifts heavy patients, gives them bathes, changes them, etc. It is a tough job that doesn't pay enough. Next story. A lot of mercenaries don't seem to get paid as much as you'd think getting shot at for money would warrant. Next story. Trash men. They do hard labor, work with rubbish, and get paid not nearly enough. They are also vital to the modern society. Next story. I'm a senior support worker, can confirm we're paid poorly for standing on our feet for 12-hour shifts. Harmful behavior is rife and the whole sector is toxic beyond comprehension. But those claps during lockdown help pay our bills. Peace, love, empathy. Next story. ITT. Any job where you are helping and a hero gets paid like shoot, probably because there is no direct capitalist value to helping people. So the only way to get enough workers is to try and shower them in praise for their sacrifice. Next story. Tellers and backup bankers. Minimum wage, but with all the stress and responsibility of a higher paying job. They'll dangle the tiny bonus carrot in front of you, but never let you get it. Going back and forth between the teller line and the lobby and the office, wherever overflow is needed. Skeleton staffing. Whenever there's a moment of downtime, there's a million tasks, so you never get a moment's rest. Next story. My husband started off making $22,000 as a fireman. The average price of a home in our city is $420,000. Next story. Call center work, especially if it's in a healthcare-related business. You're paid horrible wages to be treated like a literal piece of crap for 8 hours a day. The number of times I've been screamed at, berated, demeaned, cussed at, and treated like I was less than human is more than anyone could tolerate. You have to sit there and take it while providing quality customer service. The burnout rate is unimaginable. Next story. Hands down, nursing, UPS driver make more than a lot of 6- and 8-year college graduates. Saving lives, nurses. Nurses are worked to passing stretched thin between patients given too many patients to care for. When it comes to law, defined allowable care windows, interaction with patients aren't always fast if you do things correctly. Nurse greatest complaint is usually being unable to spend the amount of time they need with their patient to provide the care necessary for that patient. As an example, nurses only get 2 hours to admin meds to 7 patients, 2 have G-tubes and require each med to be crushed and delivered individually with gravity feed water flushes between each med and before and after, with aspiration to check for placement each time. Another patient takes their 20 meds one at a time. Another patient drops their pills, gotta get all new ones, because they refuse to toss them back from the cup. The nurse opened individual packages to put them in. Another patient needs you to do 20 tasks that they ask you one at a time each time you come back to the room. Another patient, 3 of them are impulsive and high fall risk, so bed alarms are sounding. 2 of them have IV fluids that take time to set up admin check site, check for blood return, keep things aseptic, and educate them on. One of those patients thinks they know more than the nurse and criticize every action the nurse takes. Half of those patients requesting as-needed medications once the nurse is in the room, which nurses aren't allowed to pull prior to going in the room, for just in case it's needed purposes, so the nurse have to leave the room again. Everyone requires a head-to-toe assessment during that time too, not to mention wound care on half of the patients too. Patients are rude and not considerate of the nurses or other patients' time nor understanding of the pressure put on nurses. And it's only getting worse. Nurse have to chart absolutely everything about the patient down to the amount of breaths the patient takes. If the nurse rubbed your back for you, if and why anything was declined, every single little minute detail about the patient. You have a mole that's changing shape. Now they have to get a measuring stick and measure all angles and spans of it to track the claim changes. Oh, not to mention nurses are expected to know as much as the doctor to be the last line of defense against patient harm. Next story. Being a cable guy, all you people do is meanie about internet speed. The problem most of the time is the way your house is built and where the modem is. People always put it in a shoot spot. It's not supposed to be in your office. It's supposed to be in the middle of the house. I also don't care if you work from home. Next story. I did 1-1 overnight care for a cognitively disabled adult male prone to fits and violent behavior. I was paid $12.98 after 6 months. I was making $9.27 prior as an adult day service caregiver, which I had been doing for about 2 years, started at 9HR. After 2 other people quit because he was too much work for them, the department, his caregivers, was 3 people plus the department head. This was a good thing for me because they were forced to give me full-time hours. I did the job for 3 years. I ended up at $13.90. Took my current job doing medium to heavy-duty factory work and started at $14.17, now making about $30 after 6 years. Next story. I work at an alternative school. It's more than I made working as a school photographer, but I also didn't have to go day in, day out with ninth graders being absolutely ridiculous. For reference, here are a few things I've come across. Had a parent complaining to me to the administrators because her son was failing my class. He hadn't given me the essay, only major grade at that point, waited to 50 of his grade up till then, which was due 3 weeks ago. Had a student refuse to do any work saying, "Don't rush me, bro, I'll get it done." Then in the last 5 minutes, he takes it real fast. The work was a 5-question quiz and gets a 0. He then complains that I never help him. I had a new student come into my class and process to start rizzing up 3 girls at once, 2 in my class with him, and proceeded to get caught. He then says to me, his teacher, "Don't you dislike when your holes find out about each other? These students are fudge insane." Next story. Wildland firefighters. These men and women get absolutely hosed for pay and have an incredibly arduous job. Next story. I'm a teacher, and of course I deserve more, but the right answer is EMTs paramedics. How you don't get 6 figures for doing this valuable and extremely stressful job. The ones who saved my son's life were just amazing, and it breaks my heart to see them get like 30K. Next story. Teachers, aides assistants, whatever your district calls them. They deal with the toughest kids in the schools and get paid absolutely nothing. Such a shame because they are absolutely crucial to a well-run school. Next story. EMTs, long hours and all the stuff they see every day. When I found out how much NYC is paying them, I was absolutely shocked. Next story. We talk about teachers not making enough, but I'll go further and say special education aides in severe disability classes. Most people I've seen in that capacity never miss a day, have to work hours off the clock, get sneezed on, coughed on, kicked, hair pulled, and have to change diapers regularly. They sometimes drive the bus before and after school. They pick up shifts watching the kids they work with on weekends. They volunteer at events for the kids during their free time. They make everything function for teachers and families and get paid very little for putting their heart and soul into an exhausting job. Fudge heroes. Next story. Greenhouses and garden centers. Customers expect botanist-level expertise. You are outside in every kind of weather with little to no protection, frequent heavy lifting, easy to injure yourself, and often part-time with no benefits and barely above minimum wage page. Next story. Auto mechanic. They are leaving the industry in droves. Non-stop tool payments, often no benefits. Swimming in carcinogens. You have to thoroughly understand general maintenance and mechanicals, of course, but also plumbing, electrical, hydraulics, electronics, body repair, upholstery, etc. on hundreds of models, all for crap pay. Next story. Being a pharmacy tech, a competent one, involves working in an incredibly ultra-high stress environment which requires an incredibly high degree of skill, problem-solving capability, while under unceasing pressure, and a high degree of general pharmaceutical knowledge, yet they get paid $12.15 an hour. Pharmacies literally can't run without them, and yet PBMs make billions off of their labor. Next story. Liquor store clerks. Surprisingly hard labor, but because of government taxes, private owners can't afford to pay the employees a decent wage. Next story. You'd think the highly trained person handing instruments to a surgeon in live surgery has a comfortable living. They're called certified surgical technologists, scrub tech, and their pay starts at $18 an hour. Few decades ago, it was $8 an hour. Compare that to a surgeon who makes $1 an hour. For perspective, some fast food restaurants start at $15 an hour. Some ambulance drivers make $11 an hour on 60 hours a week mandatory. Social injustice in our society. Next story. Direct support professionals, aka caregivers for adults with disabilities, physical disabilities, and mental emotional disabilities. Next story. Working in a group home with kids with behavior issues. Was minimum wage and the list of responsibilities was huge. Just a fudge joke. Next story. Jobs don't typically pay for how hard or easy they are on a day-to-day basis. They pay based off of the skills and knowledge required to operate that specific role. Next story. Elementary school teacher. My fiance being an extremely good teacher means getting to work 1 HR early and staying late, working 2 to 4 hours at home every night, and spending hundreds of dollars per month on her class, bringing home under $800 per week from a professional career that requires a bachelor's degree. It's insane. Next story. Ed techs for special education students. I work as a substitute teacher and occasionally as an ed tech, which pays significantly less. It's a pretty thankless job and sometimes impossible actually getting the kids to learn something. Some kids have behavioral issues, are violent. I wouldn't want to do it full time. Next story. EMT paramedics. They see the worst things and deserve better pay. I work in a hospital and I can't imagine actually being on scene where it's uncontrolled. Families freaking out on scene, witnessing trauma, seeing the scene, etc. Next story. Comparing one's responsibility and stress to pay, the U.S. president has got to be up high on the list. $400K is a lot, but I wouldn't do it for that. So, next story. Food service. It is mentally and physically exhausting, and you have to deal with people who will rather die than allow any opportunity for you to have a livable wage because they need you to work for nothing to make themselves feel better than you. The vast majority of them scream about you not having any skills while they are working in a warehouse or a factory or a call center, which is exactly the same thing, unskilled labor. Next story. Gotta be nurses IMO. Do everything from wiping jerk to catheters to removing passed away patients. Literally saving lives without the prestige and pay of doctors. I know nurses make like 80K-ish. They deserve about double that IMO. Next story. From my experience doing physical work, it seems the harder you work, the less you make. As far as trades go, roofers and block layers usually get paid pretty low wages and have some of the most physically demanding trade jobs. Next story. Teaching. We are the profession that works all day just to go home and work. Planning. We are the profession that makes taking off far more trouble than just going to work sick, subplans. We are the profession that gets to teach for 30 minutes because the other 30 is filled with redirections, behavior, class interruptions, bathroom, and water bottle requests, etc. We are the profession that gets harangued by parents, weighed upon by the district office, not supported by our admin, fear of parents. We are the profession that is the foundation for every other, yet we are paid peanuts. But if you can throw or bounce a ball, you are a millionaire. A millionaire for something that in the grand scheme of things that matter means nothing. Our priorities are askew. Next story. Teaching. We make more decisions per minute than most professionals. We put up with shoot all the darn time. We have insane educational requirements. Without us, all other jobs as they are now aren't possible. Next story. Entry level for a city municipality worker. You're the lowest of the low and you'll do every shoot job there is while 3 guys watch you and tell you you're useless. Most don't make end of probation. Next story. Teachers. For the life of me, you'll never understand how this happened. It is a job that requires training, education, patience, and a whole set of skills most adults will never internalize, and yet we pay them so little. Next story. Dish room. Shoot on by public opinion, shoot on by the rest of the restaurant. Yet you can bring the entire operation to a grinding halt by simply walking out. Next story. First responders, CNAs, teachers, military. I know there's plenty more, but I can't think of all of them. ATM. Next story. Fast food. I did it for 3 years when I was a teen and made $5.15 an hour. It was easily one of the hardest jobs I ever had. Lunch and dinner time rush were high stress and not worth the pay, but I was a dumb teen that didn't know better at the time. Next story. Landscaping and pretty much all labor-type jobs. It is bottom-of-the-barrel treatment for us. Even any parks and recs groundsman jobs for cities. You do a ton of work with peanuts to show for it. Next story. Police risk their lives every day, bring home their work mentally, deal with every type of weirdo under the sun, yelled at and cussed at every day, all for a little more per hour than a cashier at the grocery store. They have to deal with a lot themselves working with the general public. But policemen and women big time deserve to get paid more. Next story. A resident doctor like 60K, be so for real, why are nurses getting paid more than residents? Next story. I believe teachers are woefully underpaid. Many have a master's degree and live paycheck to paycheck. They also endure some of the most stressful working conditions I can imagine. Next story. CNA and EMTs paramedics, they deal with people at their worst and literally and figuratively at their shittiest. And they do not get paid well at all. Next story. I would have to say hotel motel housekeeping. I literally had to wear a hazmat suit to clean a room yesterday where someone spread feces on the walls. FML. Next story. Besides the obvious teachers and nurses, I'm going to say paras and CNAs. Sometimes they have the harder jobs than teachers and nurses, but significantly less pay. Next story. Depends on how you define hard. Difficult to accomplish, tedious, prone to uncertainty, boring, embarrassing, dirty. Being as a janitor is easy. Job is very simple to accomplish, but tedious and disrespected. Next story. It took 10 years of being a nurse's aide to get a base pay of $22 an hour. Without my night shift differential, I'd fudge. Next story. Hotel guest services get paid less than people who work fast food. They often have to deal with the worst people in the world. Hotel chains don't give a fudge about their employees and will regularly overbook hotels and leave the employees to deal with the mess. Might get robbed, probably work every weekend night, often don't get breaks because they run a skeleton crew as much as possible. Lazy housekeepers regularly screwing over the front desk. Lots of other bullshit. Next story. Academia. I have a bachelor's, master's, and soon a PhD, had to teach myself coding data analysis on top, work in an exclusively English environment in a non-English speaking country, and have had to manage projects with 3 million budgets. I regularly work on weekends and holidays to keep up with teaching, grading, writing my dissertation, or when we have paper or project deadlines. I make less than an old friend of mine. How did 3 years of apprenticeship and is now selling doors? Answer, I make less than an old friend of mine. How did 3 years of apprenticeship and is now selling doors? Judging by how you look down on mangakas like Oda, who've worked long and hard for years to get as far as they've gotten and generally treat people poorly on this website, it's hard to feel sorry for you. Your comments have proven that you don't care about anybody's plight, so I don't see at all why I should care about yours. Next story. Adult content lighting technician. The lighting kits are heavy, and most motel rooms have a limited number of wall outlets. Also, it gets hot in small bedrooms, and you have to act like you're interested when really you'd rather be playing Candy Crush on your phone. Next story. Cops. I'm sure there are tons of people here that are anti-cops, but we need them. It's known which ones are the good ones and they need to be paid for it. What to see great police leadership in motion? Go to YT and watch any video with Sheriff Grady Judd in Polk County, Florida. He's never had one of his officers questioned, suspended, or kicked off the force. It starts with who you elect as your sheriff. Here, let me get you started. Tell me that this man doesn't deserve every penny he earns. Oh, and he's 70-some years old and is retiring after this next election. I'm hoping his replacement is just as efficient. Looks like there is a young man set to probably be the one elected. Next story. Stay-at-home mom. Pay as shoot. You literally work 247, 365. You actually work harder on vacation, no raise. Very little appreciation. Next story. Nursing. People don't realize that the career requires a lot of critical thinking, problem solving, working under extreme physical, emotional, mental stress, and the hours are long, especially in the ICU I work in. I never have had to deal with more difficult people, truly horrendous and entitled patients and healthcare providers in my life. I have bore witness to some truly gruesome things and behaviors. Family members abandoning their sick loved ones, letting their family members die so they can take their life insurance. I see passing so regularly I think it's normal. And I've had the massive realization that big pharma in the hospital system is a business. They treat their employees like shoot, and the pay reflects that. I regret becoming a nurse and wish I went into accounting instead. Next story. Teaching and retail. I have paid attention to the signals of inflation and recessions, as well as the value of the American dollar. Over the last 4 years, I have been searching through American employment and its value for an American worker. But with the options of part-time employment, it is hard to see a difference when comparing to over a decade ago. You really have to have a common ground and seek professional employment while holding recognized hierarchy like management or education to see what the economy is really capable of. I believe there's something being left out. America still suffers from poverty. Entrepreneurs are peaking and in high demand. Jobs are plentiful, which means higher positions to be filled. And the one that everyone dreads and is a point of our time is that we are still facing homelessness, or if asked the question, why? A will to homelessness. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vanchus. See you soon.